On the afternoon of September 5, 1949, more than 72,000 spectators at Cleveland Municipal Airport watched a radically modified P-51 Mustang name begin tear around the course at over 400 miles per hour. The pilot, Bill O.D.M., was leading the Thompson Trophy race. He had never flown a pylon race before that weekend. Odom was a famous aviator. He held records for long distances flights, including a round-the-world journey completed in just 73 hours and 5 minutes. Jackie Cochran, the legendary aviatrix who held more speed and altitude records than any woman alive, had bought begin specifically for him to race. The aircraft was beautiful. Its radiator had been moved from the belly to the wing tips. The lower fuselage had been fared over smooth. It looked less like a warplane and more like a racing machine built for pure speed. On the second lap, something went wrong. Odom cut inside pylon number 3 and tried to correct toward pylon 4. The Mustang rolled inverted. It flew upside down for a terrible moment. Then it plunged into a house on West Street in nearby Berea, Ohio. Odom died instantly. So did Jean Lear and her 13-month-old son Craig. The family had moved into that house just 4 days earlier. The house burned. 72,000 people watched in horror. Cook Cleland, flying a Goodyear F-2G Super Corsair, won the race after Odom's crash. When reporters asked him about the tragedy, Cleland was blunt. He said Odom should never have been in the Thompson Trophy race at all. He was a Bendix pilot, a cross-country pilot. Pylon racing took a different temperament. ODM was a good pilot, but he was in the wrong race. That crash would end the golden age of Cleveland air racing and force the Mustang into the shadows for more than a decade, but it would not kill the airplane. The P-51 Mustang, the fighter that had swept the Luftwaffe from the skies over Europe, was about to begin a second life that nobody could have predicted. It would fight in Korea. It would fly for more than 30 nations across 6 continents. It would cut telephone wires with its propeller over the Sinai Desert. It would see the last dogfight between piston-powered aircraft in history. And 4 decades after the factories closed, it would still be flying combat missions in the Caribbean while my jet circled overhead. This is a story of what happened to the P-51 Mustang after World War II. When the war ended in August 1945, the United States military found itself with a problem nobody had anticipated. There were too many airplanes. North American aviation had built over 15,000 Mustangs during the war. The factory in Englewood, California, had produced them at a pace of over 100 per week during peak production. Now the assembly lines went silent. Thousands of aircraft sat in storage depots across 3 continents. The cost to maintain them exceeded the value of keeping them. The solution was brutal. Across American Europe, crews began cutting up perfectly good fighters with acetylene torches and dropping 18-foot steel plates from cranes to smash airframes in half. A teenager named Ed Maloney watched this destruction unfold at Calero Field near Chino, California. He was a senior in high school with a deep love for aviation. He had spent his childhood clipping pictures of airplanes and building detailed wooden models while other kids traded baseball cards. Now he watched B-17s and B-24s snap like toys. The steel plates fell from cranes and cleaved the fuselages in 2. It was almost sickening, he said. Later, he saw house-sized mounds of aircraft technical manuals being set ablaze. One of the workers told him he was welcome to all he could carry. Maloney made trip after trip, loading his car with documents, saving them from the flames. That experience would haunt him for the rest of his life. He vowed to save as many aircraft as possible. He did not have much money at the time, but he would scrape together enough to buy an old warbird and store it. Sometimes he would trade one aircraft for something else. Soon he had a collection, but Maloney was the exception. Most Americans saw surplus aircraft as scrap metal. War-weary P-51 Mustangs sold at auction for as little as $1,500. That was less than the price of a new car. During the war, each Mustang had cost the government about $51,000. Now, they were being sold for pennies on the dollar. Some foreign governments got them even cheaper. Under the Inter-American Treaty of Reciprocal Assistance, signed in Rio de Janeiro in September 1947, Many hundreds of Mustangs were transferred for the nominal price of $1 each. The Swiss Air Force bought 130 Mustangs from surplus stocks in southern Germany for about $4,000 apiece in December 1947. Switzerland would fly those Mustangs until 1958, replacing their pre-war messes with American fighters at bargain prices. The military saw no future for propeller fighter. Jet aircraft were the future. The Lougheed P-80 Shooting Star had flown in 1944 and could outrun any piston-engine plane in level flight. The new air forces forming around the world wanted jets. The Mustang seemed destined for the scrapyard. Then came Korea. North Korea invaded South Korea on June 25, 1950. Within days, the Korean People's Army had pushed south across the 38 parallel with Soviet-built tanks in overwhelming numbers. The South Korean military collapsed. American forces stationed in Japan scrambled to respond. Commanders discovered a serious problem almost immediately. Their jets were fast, but they could not stay over the battlefield long enough to support ground troops. The fat shooting star burned fuel so quickly that pilots barely had time to identify targets before turning back to base. The round trip from Japan to Korea consumed most of their fuel. They arrived over the battlefield with only minutes of loiter time. Worse, the early jets required long, paved runways. Most Korean airfields were short, rough, and cratered by artillery. Jet engines ingested debris and flamed out. The sleek new fighters were useless at the forward bases where ground forces needed them most. The Mustang had none of these problems. It could loiter over the battlefield for hours. It could operate from dirt strips that would destroy a jet engine. It could carry a 000 lb of bombs or rockets or napalm. And there were hundreds of them sitting in storage across the United States, waiting for the cutting torch. The Air Force scrambled to pull Mustangs out of mothballs. Many had been relegated to Air National Guard units. Others sat in desert storage at bases across the American Southwest. Crews worked around the clock to make them airworthy again. They loaded 145 Mustangs onto the aircraft carrier USS Boxer and shipped them across the Pacific. The Boxer departed Alama, California on July 14th and arrived at Yokosuka, Japan just 8 days and 7 hours later. It was the fastest trans-Pacific crossing by an aircraft carrier in history. By late July, F-51 Mustangs were back in combat. The designation had changed. In June 1948, the new United States Air Force had replaced the P for pursuit with F for fighter across all its aircraft. The P-51 became the F-51, but under the new name, it was the same airplane. The warbird that had escorted bombers over Berlin was now diving on North Korean tanks. Lieutenant E. Helleth was a young American pilot with barely 200 hours of Mustang flight time when he found himself fly with the Republic of Korea Air Force in those desperate first weeks. He was part of. On the afternoon of September 5, 1949, more than 72,000 spectators at Cleveland Municipal Airport watched a radically modified P-51 Mustang name begin tear around the course at over 400 miles per hour. The pilot, Bill O'Diem, was leading the Thompson Trophy race. He had never flown a pylon race before that weekend. Odom was a famous aviator. He held records for long distancias flights, including a round-the-world journey completed in just 73 hours and 5 minutes. Jackie Cochran, the legendary aviatrix who held more speed and